Welcome in everybody to another lesson. So today we are going to do applications of applications of proportions, which will entail a few word problems. I have 5 problems total, so this shouldn't be too long of a lesson. But today's goal is to show you how proportions work in the real world. So let's get started here. We have our first problem. An English teacher asserted that students' test grades are directly proportional to the amount of time spent studying. Lisa studies 9 hours for a test and scores a 75. At this rate, how many hours would she have to study to get a 92? So, again, try to understand what is the word problem asking for here. What is it telling us? So it tells you for 9 hours. So for 9 hours, she scored 75. That was her score. For 9 hours, she scored a 75. At this rate, how many hours would she have to study to get a 92? So we have a ratio of 9 hours to a score of 75. We're going to have a proportion here because we want to know how many hours she needs to study to get 92. So 92 would be the denominator, of course, for the second ratio. We don't know the number of hours. So I'm going to say let T equal hours to study. I've decided we'll let T equal our hours of study be our variable. So now we have ourselves a nice proportion here. 9 hours to get a score of 75 is equal to T hours to get a score of 92. So if we remember from yesterday, we want to take the cross product and form a nice variable equation. So what we got to do here, take the cross product of 9 and 92. So you'll have 9 times 92. Then you'll do the other cross product of 75 and T is equal to 75T. Alright, of course, let's do 92 times 9. I'm going to pull out my calculator for this here. (92 times 9), that's 828. So you'll have 828 is equal to 75T. Now, of course, the goal is let's get T by itself. You got to divide both sides by 75. Divide both by 75. So the total amount of time T you're going to get, 828 divided by 75, it's approximately 11 hours. So Lisa would have had to study for approximately 11 hours to get a 92. At this rate of 9 hours for a score of 75, she'd need to study 11 hours to get a score of 92. So it seems to me, I think her teacher needs to rethink her teaching style, because to study 9 hours and only get a 75, that's an awfully long time, don't you think? I think that's a long time to study and only get a 75. But that's just my thoughts. Alright, I got 4 more. Oh, this one's about one of my favorite cereals ever. Cocoa Wheats. We're going to talk about cocoa wheats in this example. And I dropped a marker. Don't you love that? Alright. So let's see. The nutritional chart on a box of cocoa wheats states that there are 200 calories in a third of a cup of the cereal. How many calories are in 4 cups? Alright, so talking about some cocoa wheat cereal, which let me tell you, if you've never had cocoa wheats before, oh man, you're missing out. Especially make it with milk, make it nice and creamy, put some sugar in it, put some marshmallows. Oh, I highly recommend it. But I digress. So the nutritional chart on a box of cocoa wheat states that there are 200 calories in 1/3 of a cup of the cereal. How many calories are in 4 cups? So again, we have our first ratio that this is asking for. We have 200 calories in 1/3 of a cup. 2 calories in 1/3 of a cup. We're going to have a proportion here because they're asking how many calories are in 4 cups. So we know 4 cups will be the denominator. We don't know how many calories are in 4 cups. So we'll let C equal the calories. Alright, so C will equal the calories, so we'll have a ratio of C to 4 on the right hand side of the proportion. Now we have a simple proportion. We just simply need to take this and turn it into a problem. So you'll do the cross product of 200 times 4. So you'll have 200 times 4. And then you do the cross product of 1/3 and C would equal 1/3 C. Which would mean that 200 times 4, well, that's 800. 800 equals 1/3 C. Well, the goal is get C by itself, right? So we're going to have to multiply both sides by 3. Because what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. If you multiply both sides by 3... let's see, do I have room? Oh yeah. You'll end up getting, what's 3 times 800? That's 2400. And then 1/3 C times 3, that's just C. So you'll have 2400 calories. That would be 2400 calories in 4 cups. You'll get the value of C equaling 2400, which means there's 2400 calories in 4 cups. So that's quite a bit, but honestly, it's about what I eat when I eat cocoa wheats, so I don't got room to talk. I love my cocoa wheats. So yeah, 2400 calories. I got 3 more examples here. Alright, these get to be not so bad. Let's see, let's see, 3 more problems here. Roy bicycled 234 miles in 14 days. at this rate, how far will he travel in 42 days? Alright, so Roy bicycled 234 miles in 14 days. At this rate, how far will he travel in 42 days? So again, we got ourselves a couple ratios, which will be a proportion. So, let's see. He traveled 234 miles in 14 days. Right? They want to know how far will he travel in 42 days. So, of course, you'll have one proportion. You have one ratio: 234 miles to 14 days. The 42 days will be the denominator for the other ratio in the proportion. They want to know how far he'll travel in 42 days. So we'll let D equal the distance. So yeah, D will equal the distance. We'll make that our variable. So then, like you would any other proportion equation, you're going to use black. You're going to do the cross product. So you'll do 42 times 234, because you're doing the cross product of 234 miles times 42 days would be equal to 14 times D, which would be 14 times D on the other side of the equation. So now we have to put in 42 times 234 into the calculator. You would get 9,828. 9,828 is equal to 14D. So now, of course, the goal is get D by itself. So we can find the distance. You'll just divide both sides by 14. So 9828 divided by 14. So let's see, 702 equals D, which is the distance. That means it would go 702 miles in 42 days. It'd be 702 miles. So basically with these, it's just figuring out what your ratios are and setting up the proportion problem, and there's really not much to these problems. So yeah, it'll go 702 miles in 42 days. I got two more. Two more problems. What do we got here for this one? I'm going to make people even more hungry. We're talking about some turkey. An 8-pound turkey contains 36 servings of meat. How many pounds of turkey is needed for 54 servings. Alright, so we have an 8-pound turkey, contains 36 servings of meat. How many pounds of turkey is needed for 54 servings? So, again, they give you your first ratio here, 8 pounds of turkey, right? So you have 8 pounds of turkey to 36 servings. Okay? They want to know how many pounds of turkey is needed for 54 servings. So, of course, the 54 for the servings would be your denominator of the second ratio in the proportion. We need to let P equal the pounds. I think that's perfect. So we'll have the variable P. Alright, now that we've identified what the ratios are in the proportion, we can go ahead and do the cross product and figure out P. So you'll have 8 times 54, since you got to do 8 times 54 in the cross product, is equal to the next cross product, 36 times P, which would be 36P. Of course, let's do, what is 8 times 54? That's 432. So we would have 432 is equal to 36P. Now all we need to do, we need to get P by itself to solve for it to get the number of pounds we need. We got to divide both sides by 36. Alright, so let's do 432 divided by 36. I had a feeling it was going to be that. According to this, 12 equals P, which means P is the number of pounds, so you would need a total of 12 pounds. You need 12 pounds of turkey in order to make 54 servings. So, again, setting up your first ratio, it's 8 pounds to 36 servings. To make this a proportion is equal to the missing number of pounds to 54 servings, and then just doing the cross product and you get the result. But I do have one more problem, and then we're done with the lesson. Okay, what is this one here? I picked this one for a reason. Oh yeah. Let's see. Gene bought a new car. In the first 8 months, it was driven 9,000 miles. At this rate, how many miles will the car be driven in 1 year? Alright, so we got our buddy Gene, who bought a new car. In the first 8 months they had the car, it was driven 9,000 miles. Man, it's a lot of driving. At this rate, how many miles will the car be driven in 1 year? So we can identify our first ratio, the first 8 months. So we're going to have months to try to figure out a year. You could do this one of two ways. You could take the 8 months and say that's 2/3 of a year, or you could turn the year into 12 months. That is really your choice. Personally, I think it's going to be easier if we do the year as 12 months instead of having to put a fraction in a fraction. So in the first 8 months, so they had 8 months, they drove 9,000 miles, right? 8 months to 9,000 miles. At this rate, how many miles? So this time we don't know the miles, so we'll let M equal the miles. M is actually going to be your denominator for the fact that in the first ratio, your number of miles was the denominator. You want to keep it the same in the other ratio of the proportion. That's the only way proportions work, if you keep the units in their places. At this rate, how many miles will the car be driven in 1 year? We know 1 year is 12 months. Let's just convert it, because otherwise what's going to happen is you could have kept this as 1 year. This would have been 2/3 of a year. Who wants to deal with the fraction if they don't have to, right? I know I don't. So now we need to figure out the number of miles that'll be driven in a year. So like you would any ratio, take the cross product. You'll have 8 times M, which would just be 8M. Then that would be equal to 9,000 times 12 for the other cross product. So then you'll have 8M is equal to the result of 9,000 times 12. I think that's going to be 108,000, but I could be wrong. Yep. 8M equals 108,000. So now all we got to do to get M by itself to solve for the miles, divide both sides by 8. Of course, 8M divided by 8 is M. Let's figure out what 108,000 divided by 8 is. Comes to 13,500. So M equals 13,500 miles. So that's the answer, 13,500 miles for 1 year. That's exactly how far they will drive it after a year, or 12 months. So, again, set up your problem. The first ratio is 8 months to 9,000 miles. Then we have a year, which we said was 12 months, is equal to is over M miles, rather. It's 12 months to M miles. We found M miles to be 13,500 miles after a year. So if you can understand what the problem is asking for and set up your ratios and make a proportion problem out of it, and then just take the cross product and solve for the variable, you'll get your answer. So that's really all there is to doing these word problems, these applications of proportions. Now the next lesson, we're going to get into a little bit of geometry. We're going to learn some geometric applications of proportions. So I hope everybody has a good night and take care.